Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 40 of Confessions of a Market Maker. I'm your co-host, Ray, a.k.a. All Day Ray, a.k.a. Ray Mysterio. And I'm joined here by my whimsical co-host, former market maker of 20 years and current-day retail trader, a man who longs for the days of smoky bars, door knocker, earrings, and politically incorrect humor. He's modernized, though, from odorless vaporizers to testing his luck on BrazilianCupid.com. Catch him grilling fresh Atlantic salmon on his George Foreman. I'm talking about JJ. How's it going?
Good, Ray. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good, man. Our guest today has been a professional poker player for 14 years. A man who worked his way through the ranks of playing the highest in some of the toughest cash games in the world. Man with over $3 million in live tournament earnings in a World Series of Poker bracelet. An early adopter of cryptocurrency, trader and investor, co-founder of two separate companies, CoinCentral and Upswing Poker, one of the members of the infamous Evil Empire Poker crew. I'm talking about Ryan Fee. Fees, how's it going?
It's good, Ray. That's great. That's a great intro. Thank you very much. Also, it's good to know you really have been in the mix for a while because, yeah, Evil Empire is like a pre-upswing thing. So you must be tapped in.
I am, man. That's why it's, for the listeners, this is a big one for me. This is someone, who you and your peers really inspired me, added to my drive for poker, with the passion that I pursued it with. And so, Ryan, World Series of Poker is going on right now. Biggest event of the year. It's being held online because of the pandemic. Unfortunately, I'm barred from playing in my lovely state of Florida. How's it going? What's your schedule looking like? You grinding cash, little tournaments?
So this year when COVID started, I was like everybody else was stuck inside and poker was going bananas. So I hadn't been playing that much, and I'd kind of been traveling around, and I was in South Africa at the time. So I hopped on and started playing some PLO cash, which is like the one thing I still have sort of the fire for.
Sure.
Played that for a couple months, got back to Vegas, and the games actually on WSOP were really good, and just all PLO, and I was playing PLO. And then, I don't know, the games kind of died, and I also sort of wasn't as enthusiastic about playing. Like, I think I just played too much and wanted to, just burn that area out.
Sure.
But then the World Series started, and I think I played one event, but the cash games have really been popping. Sam Grizzle banged off like 80K or something, and then just hopped in the 25-50 PLO streets and just started mashing the pot button. And it's actually a lot of fun.
Wow.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of fun because those games, it's like one player can then change the dynamic. Like players that wouldn't play will play, and then the way that everybody will play will be different. Everybody will kind of be out of their comfort zone and like looking to play pots with them. So it opens the nits up.
Yeah.
And that's like the dream for me.
Right.
So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, man, that's great, man. No, when you were playing some of, it had been a couple months ago, you were playing on ACR, you were Twitch, you were streaming some of them. Some fun pots, man. When you play, because at least the time I saw, I'm trying to think who was there. Omaha for Rolls was on there. We're talking about some of the top-notch guys. Are you playing more to for practice to hey, put yourself against the best competition, or you think, all right, I can duke it out with these guys, I might be able to pull out an edge here?
It's like all the above. It's kind of all the above. Sometimes me and Omaha, I played heads up with all of those guys.
Yeah.
Basically, I think basically all of them. And then every once in a while, or I guess earlier this year, when I was that month or so, we were playing a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's weird. I feel like everybody sort of gets into the rhythm. I feel like most of those guys aren't even online right now, but then when the games are popping, they're around.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll be maybe one day the games won't go, and we're all such sickos that we'll just play 4 tables of 3-handed with me, Omaha, and Kobus, who is
Kobus. Mm-hmm.
exclamation question mark, or 5 times 5 equals 10.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just duke it out. And for me, it's definitely I feel like they've played a lot longer, worked a lot harder on their games, so it's definitely a bit of a learning experience. But I don't know. There are some things they do wrong. But with that particular lineup, there's probably a few more things I do wrong than they do wrong. But it's good to play and learn. And some of the games have definitely been really good. So there are some of the tougher lineups that I've definitely felt like I'm winning in. So yeah, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, really. It brought me to like think about it was a tweet you put out a little while ago, and I really liked. And it was talking about like, hey, like practice if you practice playing PLO online, you could go easily beat the live games. And it's like it is true. I mean, even if you're not winning online, just get on there, get the hands in, grind it, and you should be able to win easy. I mean, how are the PLO games in Vegas?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's like the 6-handed thing, whatever's going on, and everybody's really gung-ho to get back into it. And yeah, I feel like there's a bigger, at least in Vegas, No Limit, the games are a lot, like I think the live games in Vegas are relatively tough to, compared to, I don't know, Texas or Florida or whatever. But it does feel like kind of even from like 10-20 to 2-4 online, it feels like there's like a much bigger gap than there is a No Limit. And then, yeah, like 2-4, 10-20 or whatever, PLO online to live, it does feel like it's just an enormous, it feels, like a lot bigger. And the way that, I think that tweet was framed was like, this is the way, kind of used to, if you really want to go into the past, like get pretty good online and then go play some really, and it's only going to be like one table wherever you are, probably in your whole city or area or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's going to be like probably for twice the stakes, and the players are probably going to be a lot worse than No Limit guys. So it's something to consider. Yeah,
for sure. All right, so Ryan, for the listeners who aren't or weren't as immersed in poker as ourselves, you want to give them just some context on who you are and how you rose to the position you're in today.
Sure. One thing I will say is that it's not immediately obvious. I do have what would be considered Asperger's. Now it's just the autism spectrum, but I didn't know that until like 5 years ago. When I was a kid, I lived in downtown Philadelphia and was very extroverted, kind of went out and played sports a bunch. And then moved to the suburbs when I was about 10, and then didn't have sort of like access to people, became more introverted and got into games, video games, card games, what have you. Played this like game sort of like Magic very competitively and seriously, called VS System in high school, which ultimately led to playing poker. Started playing poker as a senior in high school, became incredibly obsessed, and like was very one-track mind from like 18 through 21, 22, and was sort of like only doing that. Focused primarily on cash games. Started with like $300, and I want to say like the first year I went from 300 to like 17K. The next year went from like 17K to like 250, and then flew down to Costa Rica and played my first ever live tournament, or like possibly my first tournament of the year. I was like just a cash game player up to that time, and ate like half a dozen horseshoes before I played, and then just won it for like 300K. So with 95% of myself too, which was like just the sickest. Doubled my roll, moved to California, and then fixated on mostly cash games, mostly heads up, No Limit. That sort of dried up. Transitioned to a bit of tournaments, did that for a year, and honestly found it to be quite torturous, despite having some decent results. It was sad, man. Like I would travel to all these places and just, wouldn't really get to enjoy it. It was very grueling, and frankly, as like an activity, I didn't really like it. And then, took a couple months, let the dust settle, and was like, what am I going to do now? And then sort of had the idea for Upswing, pitched it to Doug, and he was immediately enthusiastic about it. Co-founder of Upswing Poker, which is biggest, best training site there is these days.
Yeah, I think tournament, I play tournaments around here and there, not too much. I'm a cash game guy as well. It feels like you said, grueling. It feels more like a job in a sense, right? It's like you got to show up at a certain time, take a break when they want you to take a break. The variances,
it's just unbelievable. The variance, like, and even like the way that like taxes work, where for your listeners, like cash games, you don't really have losing years, but in tournaments you can like win $1 million, pay all the tax on it, be in the highest tax bracket. The next year, lose $500,000 and have like basically netted broke even lost.
Yeah.
Despite having a 500K profit. So yeah, it's for a variety of reasons. It's really tough. And for me, I mean, like the tournament, a lot of the tournament guys that play it, they love it. They're just degens. But that's not that degen gene is not one that I share. So
yeah, same. That's funny. Yeah, you do have to have that degenerate edge. You had the idea for Upswing. Like, have you always had like an entrepreneurial mindset, Ryan? Where did that idea come from?
Actually, no. What you may not know is I've always had. So I've always had, the desire to help others, and not even teaching, just helping.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually, so when I got into poker, what happened was I was at that time in my life, I was taking the practice SAT courses, I guess like right before that.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of knew about the gambling books because the sections were right next to each other. So I found out about 2+2 after I was like really over school, because I was like, what am I going to do? Maybe I'll do poker. And I went online and found this whole community, which was way different back then. And there were all these different threads and sticky threads, and people were posting hands, and like they post a hand and then they'd have these like three numbers, like 17, 5, 1 or something. I didn't know what the hell that meant.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't, it's like the VPIP and free flop raise, and they're statistics that are aggregated by tracking software. And I was just like, holy shit, this is just so overwhelming, and there's not like a concise path. Like I need like a primer basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent the first 2 years sort of, ramming my head into the wall and trying to figure it out. And after about 2 years I guess it was between 1 and 2 years. Because I had made like a little bit of money. I was playing 2-4. I was like, holy shit, I'm making like $90 an hour. Like, we did it, fam. Like, we're great.
Yeah.
So I was like, I just had this idea for what was on 2+2 titled My 5K Post, which was essentially a book, a complete guide for how, like, everything you would need to know, like if you were kind of in poker's orbit or even not in poker's orbit, you could read this, you could like then execute like a 6 max no limit strategy and kind of have a semblance of an idea of what to do. So yeah, I put that out, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago now, and that really took off. And then I didn't think that much of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of went back into my grinding hole. In fact, and then kind of at some point around Black Friday, I kind of regretted it a little bit, because I was, poker was really uncertain and I wasn't sure what was going to happen or what I was going to do. Just sort of kept at it and it worked out. And then, yeah, I definitely felt like towards the end of my like hardcore professional poker career, it just felt something that didn't jive with my personality about just hoarding money and information in like a hole somewhere. Like that just didn't feel right to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really was this very good cathartic release. And yeah, to this day, I mean, people hit me up all the time that, it's really helped them out. So it's been good.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I got a question, a personal question from me. Like, probably just like a year ago is when I really got out of like just full like grind mode. And, as you know, poker can be very consuming. And like, now that I'm trading, got other ventures going on, I've had to juggle things a bit better. So I don't, cause I still play poker to an extent, but like once I get into it, Ryan, it's like I was saying, it can be consuming. How do you juggle other responsibilities or like, the business and things like that without getting consumed by poker?
This isn't really going to be an answer to your question, but I can kind of describe sort of like what happened with me in poker and how I deal with it now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it got to be too much. Like I was kind of overdoing it with poker and sort of like underdeveloping other parts of myself in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became like sort of like, I would say traumatic, because if I would win, I was kind of like supposed to win. If I would lose, it would like really start to irk me, because I just I didn't want to be playing poker. Like it was just too much. Like I couldn't do 8 hours a day every day anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really sort of like ate me up. And then I had taken then a lot of time off. And then, while I was doing Upswing, like that was, I wasn't playing, like, I wasn't honestly playing as much until like a year after that started, when I started streaming again. Or started, I guess, streaming for the first time to sort of help promote it, because like I had spent every day working on the business. So now it's kind of like the way I do it is like, it's not very professional, in the sense that, it's like on my whim. It's like, if I really want to play, I'll play. And if I don't, I won't.
Yeah.
And it's been, like I was saying, the games have been really good, but like if my heart's not in it, like, I've been in like some really good games, and I'm like texting like my friend who's like also like, I'm like, dude, I like, just, my soul is just not in this activity right now. So if anything, I guess sort of for me, it's kind of the opposite. It doesn't consume me. Like, if anything, I want to engage more with it, and I kind of can't.
Yeah.
And it's, and I guess for, the listeners of the players out there, one of the common questions that I get is like, I'm on tilt, I'm losing, I'm this, I'm that. And, what do I do? And the answer is that it's like a marathon. You kind of have to, you just got to step away and come back,
Yeah.
And if you're so tilted that you can't play a balanced game, you essentially have no other option than to just not play. Which is why, I mean, you're kind of in a good, well, you're trying to not get consumed, but you're in a good position that you have other outlets. I mean, you even have a kid, which is like amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say, you kind of, if you really don't want to play, or like you really, like your heart's really not in it to play, you can't play. And that might mean you need to restructure your life in some way to minimize poker. How do you play without getting obsessed? I think so then, to the extent that I can answer your question, I would say, I do like to get really immersed in it. Yeah. Like I do, like earlier this year when it was like 1 or 2 months.
Yeah.
I would try to set it up like that, where it's like, I'm going to give myself space away from other things, and really like priority one in a professional context is poker.
Yeah.
And then just do that until it runs its course. The games are really good. You have a lot of enthusiasm for it. One or the other, both, whatever.
Right.
And then, and then let it go. Like, I don't even think it's good to be sort of singularly focused, like, singular, like,
Definitely.
Over the course of the year, I trade for 6 months. I play poker for 3, and I dick around for 3. And I think that's something.
No. And honestly, like this past year has been way more enjoyable for me. Trading, getting with this guy, JJ, not having to just be, like you said, like just 8 hours a day of poker can just be real draining, just consuming. And like, what I was getting at with that question is like, but it's like, once I do start playing Ryan and my heart is in it, it's like, boom, just like just locked in. But like you said, I think that makes a lot of sense. And that's been more or less my approach, is like, hey, when my heart's in it, boom, we'll do it. If not, okay, I'll take a step back. And I have found myself enjoying it much more that way, as well.
Yeah. I just think so long as you're not beating yourself up, right? Like if you're really in it and you're beating yourself up because you should be doing this or that, like you just let it go. Just be in it and do it. And then if you really don't want to be doing it, like just put the fucking mouse down, get out of the house, get away from that shit, because you'll slip in, you'll rationalize a little bit, you'll be in the game, and then you'll be stuck, and then it'll eat at you, and you're like, why the fuck am I even in this game? It just never works.
No, you're absolutely right. And so I'm just going to transition away from poker a little bit, because we got a lot of traders on here, and Ryan, one of the big things I found out coming over from poker to trading is sort of like the mindset some of the traders have, or like on a mass scale, obviously not everybody, but there's like a lack of probabilistic thinking, game theory, the concepts that poker thrusts upon us, to be successful. How have these skills like that you've learned in poker helped you in a broader life? Like,
I would say that's a difficult question to answer. Just because it's sort of like, I just read this tweet, which was a quote about like, it's like, I don't like, when I read a book, like I absorb it and then it just is me. So it's not like, oh, I'm like, oh, it was this lesson. It's not necessarily so clear like that. The only thing that's really coming to mind is like when in decision making or when I make claims, I will be able to, like, if you were to ask me about a given decision or a given claim that I would make, I would be able to like stack up like a series of reasoning to where like you would very clearly be able to understand my perspective and how I arrived there. It would be an opinion that was my own. And I tend to find, and I don't know what it's like with traders exactly, but I tend to find with a lot of people, there's like a simple pointed question will reveal that they're sort of just making very arbitrary choices. So yeah, I guess and then the probabilistic, standpoint. So one of the things that's been happening on my stream that I get a lot of feedback about is that, a lot of people will say, man, you just like don't tilt. And it's mostly true. It's not entirely true. But it's sort of like, well, for me in particular, I've been through the ringer so much. It's like, I get it, like this is just happening. It's going to happen, like whatever. And then, but I do think that translates to real life when something upsetting happens and it doesn't really affect me. And it's a little bit confounding to others. So I don't know. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is that in theory, I think even traders sort of understand like what they're supposed to be doing. And really through the virtue of just a lot of experience, I've been able to like actually practice that. And I think there's like a delta there. Because and that's one of the things I love about poker trading or just life in general is I like when there's stakes, or when there's risk or like something's on the line. I find that's a lot more interesting because then you sort of get to really see what everyone's made of, what they're really holding, what they really believe.
Right.
And yeah, there's often, especially with normal people,
a
pretty big gap there between what they're willing to represent
exactly
and what they're actually holding. So,
oh my God, like my non-gambling friends, which is actually a majority,
like me,
like him, like no, because so people will make claims that I know are just like not true, and us, like, well, okay, you want to bet on it?
I'll bet you. Yeah, I'll bet on it. Yeah.
Right. It's like, let's see really how sure you are. Like, like, come on. But yeah, I it's even like Ryan, I sometimes my gambling friends, and I've spoke about this before plenty on the podcast. It's sometimes it's hard to get through to somebody who they just see things in black and white, and we know things are not black and white. There's rarely 100% chance of something happening. I'm like, it might be 75, it might be 60. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, this is why I don't know if you ever read Freakonomics, but one of the chapters in that book covers the weather forecast, or maybe this is Nate Silver's book. I think it's Freakonomics though. Either way, basically the Weather Channel or the weather company, whoever reports the weather, if there's an 80% chance of rain, they'll actually report it as only an 80% chance of sunshine. They'll only report it as 70 or 60% because 80% is so high that people then equate that to 100%, and they get upset when the 20% of the time happens.
Right.
And yeah, it's
so it's like, so it's something like that, Ryan, I think it's like helped me in real life, just knowing that there's rarely any certainty or like 100% certainty, like, in just coming, it's almost like visceral to us now, right? Like, we've been to so many 80-20 spots.
Yeah.
We, so I don't know. I just think, I think for a lot of different circumstances and just analyzing just day-to-day decisions. Cause I mean, I see people are just terrible decision makers, and even simple things in life, and just how, like you said, it's probably so immersed with yourself now and immersed with us is that like we analyze every decision very thoroughly.
Yeah. I also, what also is another really big thing that it just sort of has come to light to me in one way or another is the ability to lose.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you are going to be a poker player, a successful poker player over a long period of time, that is interesting too, because it's definitely not just pure poker aptitude or intuitive ability. If you're going to be successful over like a long period of time, you're going to have to deal with loss. And it's like, you have to deal with it. And if you are to be successful, you've clearly got some sort of coping mechanism or something in some way, because there's just no, there's no other way to really get around it. And that's like that's another really big, say, skill or trait one can possess is the ability to lose, genuinely take the lesson from it, and then come back, especially in poker. Like I tell this to everybody, like you're going to have a streak of losing consecutively where you do everything right that will have you question your own sanity.
Yep.
And that happens with like actually every single poker player. There's no, whichever sicko you can think of, like every single one of them has been through this like more times than they can count. So when you're in the midst of it, honestly, again, reframe it. It's an opportunity to test your resolve and your discipline and your focus, because you can get over it and, you know, you'll be stronger for it. And then chances are you're going to huge fucking upswing and make a bunch of money and you'll feel great. So persistence is key.
Yeah. And I feel like it's probably a tough thing for most people. I mean, probably for all of us, right? And this definitely applies to trading, is separating the result, you know, from the process. How have you gone about that? Or do you have any tips for the listeners out there?
The result, can you just rephrase that?
Okay. So in the context of trading, right? So, because most of the listeners are traders, they can win. It could be a terrible process on how they made a trade, and it could be a winning trade, or vice versa. They could have a great process. They followed their strategy, however they go about trading, but they lose. How, you know, and like you were talking about, this can mess us up, right? Because you could make good decision, lose, start questioning yourself. So how do you combat that?
Again, I don't know if there is, and I don't know if I have the perfect answer to this question. So I want to change the question just a little bit.
Yeah.
To like, when were the times, when either on the one hand, I felt like most certain, like I was going to succeed, overcome and win, or the times when I had sort of the greatest success with poker. And that's not necessarily to say you won the most money. And that was like when I really loved to play, because I wasn't so concerned, like the outcome wasn't the primary. And this is the dichotomy between when I first started playing poker, I was obsessed for 4 years. There's nothing else in the world I would rather do. I was in a 10 out of 10 perfect flow state for like, I would say between 2.5 and 3 years. And it's just sort of tapered off. And actually when I started playing PLO for the first time, and honestly, even to this day, not as much because I burned that candle a little bit, but I was just in like, I didn't care. Yeah. Win or lose, like whatever, you know, I lost, like, I remember losing 70K at 1020 somewhere towards the earlier part. And I was like, I was on this downswing. I lost again. I went to dinner with my girlfriend, and I'm like kind of tapped out at dinner, and I'm like not really paying attention to her. And she's like, it's not like, you've been on downswings before. Like, what is it? It's like, it's not the downswing. I just want to go, like, I'm just thinking about playing. Like, I just want to be back there clicking the buttons. Like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Like the fire that I got right now. So if you're attached to the outcome, you're fucked. You know, if you just love to do it, whatever it is, trading or poker in this context, like it won't, it's honestly a good test for if you are, because if you, if you're not completely indifferent, but if you're able to shrug it off and come back with sort of like a clear mind, because you're excited, because you're doing, let's say in a trading context, this trade goes one way or another, whatever, a couple trades go sideways, you know, you're back at square one, you wake up the next day, and then you fire up your Bloomberg terminal, you start reading the same stuff, you bust out your spreadsheets, and then you're like, okay, you know, we're buying Apple, we're shorting Tesla, and we're buying like GM or whatever, right? And like, you've got your convictions, like you've made your trades, and now, I don't know, I guess you're sweating them, you're continuing to do research, and you just sort of consistently have the fire for those things, you will succeed. And if you don't, you know, you're in a bit of trouble. Not to say that you can't, but you're going to be somewhat compromised in one way or another. So it's risky.
Sure. So what's the extent to your? Are you actively trading more, investing? Kind of break down your trading style for us.
So me and a friend. So I've been interested in finance forever. In fact, I thought I hated reading books, because all the book, I had a negative association with reading, because the books that I read in school, I was like, dude, I don't care about this character.
Same.
I don't care if they live or die. Like, this is a waste of my time. Like, I was so, in retrospect, I'm so offended at like the shit they had me reading, because I was like, this is an egregious waste of my time, like to this day. But then I read Confessions of a Street Addict, which was Jim Cramer's like autobiography. When I was a sophomore in high school, and I couldn't put it down. Like, I was in class, like it was like the most sick life hack ever. Like, I was in class reading a book. They thought I was like working on like whatever bullshit they had me do. I was like, nah, I'm reading this book. And I like polished it off in like a day, after not being able, like, I remember having like a breakdown in third grade and crying, because like I couldn't do a book report because I couldn't read the book because it was so bad. Like, I don't remember what book it was, but it was that. So stark contrast to this book.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've read, I don't know, I have like 2 bookshelves out there. Like one of them is all finance books. And one of the books I've read that I couldn't stop was Flash Boys. Basically a book about HFT, or like very quantitative short time horizon trading.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on to read, what else is there's Quants, Dark Pools, a couple others, Jim Simon's, like, whatever his new book, or the guy wrote about
Man, I beat them. Yeah.
So I'm not too. I found out about value investing, but like my opinion now is that it's kind of like not dated. It's just kind of boring. It's just kind of like solved. It's like a solve game. It's like limit hold'em.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is interesting, but it's not that like there's other domains of investing which I find more interesting.
Yeah.
And I particularly find the idea of HFT interesting because I like the theory and practice of it. Because how do I say this? It's like it's a blend of science and engineering, but it's more engineering. At least it strikes me as more engineering. And yeah, you're like, there are these sort of theoretical concepts involved about like what is a given asset worth at a given time. And sort of like how much risk can you take on? What's the best way to offer or take liquidity? So yeah, anyway, so a friend and I and a couple of developers have been working on this HFT project where we essentially market make. Although I don't know, we're saying that because we post a bunch of maker orders. I don't know if it's necessarily market making, but we offer liquidity. So the best way to say it is we offer liquidity for Bitcoin or cryptocurrency perpetual contracts.
Yeah.
And we do so in a way which, the very short answer is we come up with we algorithmically develop what we think the price of a given asset is in a millisecond, or sub-second time,
Sure.
like a snapshot in time. And then we offer to buy and sell that asset essentially outside of that range. It's in a bit of a range, and we essentially we'll buy cheap Bitcoins, we'll sell expensive Bitcoins, and yeah, we make a number of small transactions a day, and we're working on it for a couple of years now. And this is more so dealing with like the plumbing of the market. It's like our trades happen. There's a ton of them every day, and they're the time horizons are very small, which again you then could value is kind of on the other side, where oftentimes
we understand
months or years. And aspirationally, we want to start at seconds and then expand to minutes, hours, days, weeks, etc. I don't know if that's realistic, but for the time being, we are very interested in the quantitative nature of like the sub-second plumbing trades of the market.
And where do you get your flow from?
Where do you get
your order flow from?
What do you mean, or what does that mean?
Well, if you're making a market, you're getting order flow from somewhere to make the market. I'm just curious. I'm a novice to Bitcoin and these sorts of things. So I've been making markets for 20 years. So in equities. So I'm just curious how you get your order flow. I mean, in the equity model, we pay a brokerage firm for their order flow.
So the way it works so we trade specifically, we largely trade the biggest crypto markets, which are Bitcoin, these Bitcoin perpetual derivatives, which are super interesting, unique products that Bitmex really sort of pioneered, where they have what's called the funding rate, where the longs pay the shorts, the shorts pay the long, depending upon an index price made up of spot markets. But then these derivative markets do like almost all the volume. And there's a couple of them. So there's these interesting sort of somewhat fugazi products that we trade across all these exchanges, and so these like online, regulated, unregulated. There's no NBBO for
no. So you guys are basically acting like a large prop firm, making both sides. Interesting.
I guess I don't know. I'm not as familiar with the tech.
No, that's cool. I find Bitcoin fascinating. I'm an old guy, so I'm back from the days when we used to actually write our orders on tickets and call in on the phones. So it's fascinating to see a completely new market created, right? And
Totally.
bring retail into it. And then now you guys see the opportunity to, provide liquidity, which, now you're starting off in the early days of it. You could end up being like a citadel of a crypto, right? Which is very cool.
Totally. Yeah. That's sort of like that's the pipe dream. And, we're very fortunate in that we're both fascinated by the topic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a crazy world. Like, listen to this. So, Bitmex, you might be familiar with, was sort of like the Bitmex XBT USD perpetual contract was the center of the crypto universe. Like, that was, if something happened there would be ripple effects through kind of everything else.
It's the exchange, JJ. Where they
Bitmex is the exchange, Bitcoin Mercantile Exchange.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened or how, but Huobi opened up it's called HBDN, their derivatives market, and created their own version of this, and have in a couple months overtaken BitMEX's volume. Now,
Really?
It seems like a bunch of that, for those of you who are tapped in, it seems like a bunch of that has come from OKEX, and maybe not so much from Bitcoin, but just the amount of volume that they're doing there. It could be fake, but we really don't think it is based on our trades there. So yeah, and you just, you would just sort of, I feel like rarely see that in traditional finance. And I mean, even in crypto, it's a crazy phenomenon. So just things like that keep us interested. And then it's, we really are, at least we think, on sort of like the frontier and the cutting edge of knowledge and what can be known and figured out. So, hopefully, the pipe dream is to go out of crypto.
Another quick question. So is there a lot of wash trading in crypto?
What is wash trading?
Wash trading is deceptive trading between, say you and I are partners and we have an asset. We'll basically trade between each other, give the appearance of activity, people jump in, we move the market up and fill them.
I would say there's two examples that I am privy to. The first is that a bunch of exchanges are faking volume. It depends on the exchange. Mm-hmm. Some of them are like very fraudulent, and then other ones maybe just have, like bots making and taking their own liquidity and then washing their fees. That's on the one hand. The other hand, I don't know if you guys follow this, but Bitmex has something called the Bitmex Insurance Fund, just in case basically like everybody tries to sell and there is no buyers, and the longs can't cover the shorts. Bitmex has something like 36,000 Bitcoin, or something that they have to cover that. And it seems like back when Corona first happened and Bitcoin tanked a bunch, the speculation is that a group of traders, whales essentially, decided to short the market together and go after the fund, because even if Bitcoin is trading at, let's say, 4K on a spot market, it can go to zero as a perpetual. And if it does, the shorts will make essentially that delta and be able to pick up the entire insurance fund. So the gossip is that Bitmex crashed its servers. Well, its servers mysteriously went down around this time. And then when they came back, Bitmex was trading at, I want to say, a $500 to $800 discount to basically every other market for an hour or so. And just generally speaking, things like this in the crypto markets is not unusual. So it is madness in the Wild West, and stuff like this. I'm not really, this is like sort of beyond my understanding, because I'm kind of a noob and I'm very narrowly focused on what I'm doing. But it seems like the pros, the guys that really do know what they're doing, the JJs of the world are in there with piles of money and are
sounds like fun. Sounds like the old days in the penny stock world.
I'm sure these guys are having a fucking blast. There's no doubt in my mind.
Oh, that's very cool. Now, can you trade these coins on 2 exchanges at the same time, or is there arbitrage opportunity for stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like a chunk
Okay.
of what we do is arbitrage for sure.
Okay, cool. Cool. Okay.
And actually, I have a question for you. I have a series of questions, and since I'm sort of so insulated, it's me and my partner who's just he's even younger than me, and he's just sort of studied math his whole life, and now is more on the computer science side of things. His math pedigree is way past what we would need for this project. But it seems to us like what really Bitcoin in the beginning did seem to be a bit more, I'm going to say event driven, a bit more of an event driven asset where this would happen, it would go up or down, and that would happen, go up or down. Now it seems largely detached from many events that would previously affect it. And it seems like there are just people with a lot of money or Bitcoins or whatever that are moving the market one way or another, kind of at their whim. It seems not correlated to us.
Yes.
To any of these events. So it's these big markets, and they're like the whims of the participants are largely obfuscated, at least from us. I don't know. Maybe they're connected. And they sort of like have an understanding. We certainly do not.
Well, yeah, that sounds fascinating, because that's almost like in Globex action in the futures market, you'll get size traders bullying price around, right? You build a position, and then you move the market up to sell your position into and create the liquidity to sell, right? By running the stops of the shorts, right? For example, we do that every day. I mean, not us as retail traders, but I used to do it every day on the other side. Right. So that's really cool that that's going on now, because this is sort of the the infancy of a market, and you can see all the manipulative tactics or market making tactics that we used in the old days, being brought forth, but in a much more sophisticated environment. Interesting.
Yeah, I know there is. That's like another. There's questions about, and I don't know, how much is. I'm not privy to any of this, but there are questions being raised about, are their internal desks, or do they give proprietary access to certain information to certain desks, such that they can do things like that. And there definitely seems like every once in a while, a bunch of longs or shorts get roasted, and in a seemingly coordinated way. But again,
well, I mean, it would make sense that it's coordinated, because that's how we usually hunt in packs, right? So that's the way we used to do it in the old days. It happens still in sure. You can see prop firms get together and bully an asset around, or a stock or something like that. One last question, sorry, Ray. This is fascinating stuff. Now, Bitcoin, is there a set number of coins, or is it possible to water it down? Like, how like in the old days, people would get caught short, they just print up more stock certificates, right? Is there a set number of coins, and that's how blockchain works? Is that to identify that those coins are actually real versus not real, or how does that work?
Well, the derivatives, there can be an infinite number of coins, essentially. I offer liquidity, you take it. We've created a new contract, and there's something called oh my god, how do I forget? There's I forget the term off the top of my head, but it's essentially like open liquidity, like how many contracts exist.
Open interest, yeah.
Open interest, interest, right? Yeah. So that number, from the derivatives perspective, there's no limit. From the coins itself, yes. The way that Bitcoin works is we're at about 18 of 21 million coins. It's a finite supply, and there's not going to be printing of any more. That said, I do believe it's technically possible for there to be a fork where there could be more coins printed, but it would be similar to the Bitcoin forks that have kind of like already happened, and that's kind of like a can of worms. Let's just, I think for all intents and purposes, for the most part, we can say we don't have to worry so much about the forks. Yes, for the purpose of Bitcoin, from now until perpetuity, we're at 18 million. We'll be at 21. They get, released slowly through mining.
Okay, that's another fascinating thing. This mining thing. Can you explain that? I'm sorry, like for a layman, like
Sure.
the actual mining of these coins.
Sure. So the Bitcoin network produces a cryptography problem that the network will take. It adjusts the difficulty of the problem such that the network will take, on average, about 10 minutes to solve the problem. Sometimes it could be 6 minutes, sometimes it's 15. But on average, about 10 minutes. When it does so, it releases 6.25 Bitcoin to whoever solved the problem. Now, there are like gobs of CPUs all over the world, essentially, and they're essentially gambling, really. It's like they just randomly spit out, there's this, cryptographic string. It's like, find the right string, find the needle in the haystack, throw it at this problem. Does it solve it? Yes. You win the block, you make the next block, you get the reward.
Okay.
And what happens is, in order to sort of reduce variance, is these miners get into what are called mining pools. And then they sort of collectively create blocks and then collectively distribute the rewards.
Interesting.
And as far as, I have a friend who has a mining company, and I think they're up in Canada. There's some in Iceland, a bunch in China. And essentially what you're looking for with mining is, three things. The first thing is you want a political climate that will not come in and steal your shit. I would say that's number one. Number two, you want cheap electricity. And number three, you want cooling of some kind that could fall under electricity. So it's there's oftentimes, people will talk about how much energy Bitcoin uses in order to maintain its network. And I do think that they're being either ignorant or misleading with the way they say that, Bitcoin uses 2% of all electricity. It's burning down the forest, or, yada, yada, yada. And, I would say my argument to that is the first thing is that a lot of this electricity would otherwise not be used. A lot of it's, it's not like they're burning coal. A lot of it's hydroelectric and things like this. And
I've drilled for oil down to 17,000 feet. I've mined gold, done gold mining. They're expending a lot of energy. It's not
right.
like those Cat D8s are running on or battery powered.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, and the reason you're economically incentivized to find cheap. It's like they were going to throw the electricity away anyway, and it's not endangering sort of anything. Mm-hmm. That's on the one side. On the other side, I would say that, Bitcoin is trying to solve a problem. The one problem that it has solved is the Byzantine generals problem. The best way I've heard the sort of practical solution for, people or society is that it's trying to digitize trust. And that if in the event that it succeeds, and it's on this path to succeed, and we can get into it, but I feel like it's on a very good trajectory. I'm quite content with this trajectory. That it's well worth the amount of electricity that it would consume to do that. Mm-hmm. We would easily get a return on investment. Now, that said, if we didn't have to do that, if there's a technical solution that iterates on that, awesome. But I don't think that's a necessity for us as a society to be content with where it's going, what it's doing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Ryan, since you kind of got into it, I was going to ask, go for the chalk question. I was going to ask you about the outlook of crypto, but you said you're pleased with the trajectory.
Yeah, I'm specifically, I'm pleased with the trajectory of Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the sense that think about it like this: Bitcoin is being hazed. Bitcoin is in a process of being hazed. If it wants to have $100 trillion market cap, be this ubiquitous global store of value that everybody ultimately transaction, and this gold standard, it's not just, it's going to be a rocky road. And it's this weird phenomenon where and this happens across multiple domains, where you have doubters and everyone hates it and it's stupid, and it's this and it's that. And then everyone loves you. And then everyone is almost takes you for granted. That's sort of the arc of it. The same thing actually happened with Doug. For, those viewers who don't know, my friend Doug, essentially challenged the guy that was the best heads up player at the time, and then got a lot of hate, and then demolished him. And then everybody was a fanboy, and now he's kind of rode off into obscurity. But it's the same thing in Bitcoin, where it's going to take decades. On the one hand, for it to deal with all there's technical problems And the technical people, like Vitalik said something to the effect that he was very surprised that Bitcoin was able to do well despite not overcoming scaling problems. This is a couple years ago, and he is correct in that assessment. But Vitalik's looking at it from a purely technical standpoint. There are many, like, for something, the way that Peter Thiel would frame this is that in order for something to come along to overtake Bitcoin, it needs to be an order of magnitude better than Bitcoin, especially, and not just from, I think probably not just from like a technical standpoint. Like, you know, Bitcoin has like absolutely superb marketing, like superb. Every trading pair, everything's traded in Bitcoin. People actually have use case for Bitcoin. People use it to transact in value. So, you know, for something else to come along, it's going to be quite a task. So yeah, I sort of like view Bitcoin in this sort of hazing period now. We want to work out some technical things. It's also too difficult to use for a lot of people. And I think some, you know, a good chunk of the older generation is just never going to get on board. So there's a certain amount of like, just, you know, people of the internet will be, you know, just people in the future will be more likely to use it despite some of the technical flaws. We'll iron that out over time. And yeah, and you know, in the same way that Trump got billions in free advertising for saying ridiculous shit and getting plastered all over the mainstream media, you know, Bitcoin during its, you know, bull run up and now, but certainly a lot then, got billions of dollars in free advertising. Yeah, I'm quite content with with specifically. I mean, we can talk about other coins, but in context of specifically Bitcoin, I think it's done great. It's doing great, and yeah, I'm not too concerned about the bull and bear markets at all.
So what's like the end goal? What's going to the success look like? It's the primary store of value. What in your opinion? I don't know if there's like a consensus.
I definitely don't think there is. Yeah. You know, I think that the very long-term goal is, is to be this sort of this currency that everybody uses and transacts in. Mm-hmm. But like, I think that's just not something that's going to happen overnight. And I think more so it's going to be this digital gold, this store of value, this digitized trust thing. And again, like, you know, gold's got 1,000 some odd year history of being this reliable store of value. For those of you who are, you know, fans of Taleb, I'm a huge fan. You know, he would say it's the Lindy effect. Gold's been around for 1,000 years. It's likely to be around for another 1,000 years. Bitcoin's been around for 10 years, hasn't died yet. Or a little bit longer now. And, you know, is likely to be around for another sort of 10 years. You know, every day, and that's another thing I would say about Bitcoin is not so much that just it exists, continuing to exist, you know, billions in volume, trading pairs, et cetera, just not dying every day makes it stronger. And yeah, I think that where we're headed towards over the, let's say the short to medium to early long time horizon, is it being a reliable sort of like, you know, source of digitized trust where asset managers feel comfortable allocating a, you know, a portion of their non-equities, non-bond, non-real estate, you know, type portfolio to something like, like a commodity, or I guess in many ways Bitcoin is a commodity. To have this, you know, secured store of value, like what it's achieved on a security front is not is very impressive from a computer science standpoint. At least I understand, to the extent that I understand computer science.
Definitely. I mean, you were in a lot earlier than myself. You know, just being an American and playing online poker. That's how I was, you know, got familiar with crypto. During the whole boom, like what was it, like late 2017 into 2018, what was that period like for you personally? I mean, there was like so much euphoria. It was crazy. So what was it like for you personally?
I went over to a friend's house, and he's an artist, and he was working with a writer. They were writing something, and I walk in and talking to the writer, and the writer's like, "So is this annoying or exciting for you?" And I thought about it. I was like, man, he's like right on the money, because like it's both. It was exciting because I was like, I told you, motherfuckers.
Yeah.
And it was annoying because like when like the masses are piling in, and it's become, and like the real objective is being obfuscated. It's this it's basically the get rich quick idiots. When the get rich quick idiots pile in, it's terrible, because it's like, on the one hand, it's like the con artists, and on the other hand, it's like the people that are getting conned, and like they're both like, as far the con artists are slightly more insufferable, but like they're both bad. And it's, yeah, so they're super annoying, but like, I mean, it's also very exciting. And also I want to offer like a little bit about I actually found out about Bitcoin at sub $10, maybe $1, but like sub $10.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking I had two thoughts simultaneously. The first, I actually don't remember which the first thought was, but the two thoughts were essentially like, this is really cool. This is amazing. This is unbelievable. And the second thought was, this is a fucking Ponzi scheme. Like, somebody's like hoarding this thing, like it's going to pump and dump. Mm-hmm. And that stopped me from buying any, because, and weirdly, I didn't understand that these two things could be simultaneously true. Like, I didn't understand that it could be a weird market pump and dump Ponzi thing, and then also be a revolutionary technology. And those things were true, especially in the, the early days, because then it went from, I don't know, whatever price it was, let's say $1 to 30. Oops, back down to $1. And then it wasn't somewhere after that. I started getting coins around $90, and I was pretty content. I was like, this is going to be good.
What made you eventually get in?
After that whole cycle, I just took it seriously. I thought it was gonna be a Ponzi, get dumped, and then go away, and it didn't. It came back.
Yeah. And
I was like, that definitely raised an eyebrow.
Got your attention. Yeah.
Where I was like, this thing, like, might not die. And again, like it's so, once you really spend time, you get to watch the arc of it, the narrative of like this, of how humble the beginnings were, and how like important that was to its success, especially relative to all these like scam coins that are just like, yeah, buy all my coin, like, give me your Bitcoin, I'll give you this thing, and then we'll see,
Mm-hmm.
It had essentially like made it over that hump, and then caused me to sort of rethink about it. And I also, at the time, I was playing poker, and I was having a tremendous amount of difficulty moving money around, so I really appreciated the frictionless in transaction that it provided. So I was being an online, like being specifically an American who was traveling abroad to play on a variety of online poker sites and dealing with different financial institutions in trouble. This absolutely gave me a unique perspective to appreciate the value that it had brought, and really sort of get it, and maybe even overestimate it. I mean, there's 10% of me is like a crazy libertarian anarcho capitalist, like, just leave us alone. There's like, so like that, there was that too. So like a lot of things sort of lined up, for me to appreciate it. And then I was like, this is it. So I just got some.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine, right? Poker players got to be one of the first adopters, probably, right, of crypto, I would imagine, or at least, like you're talking about, like, and I've heard others talk about this as well, like just transfer money from playing different tournaments around the world.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've done a tremendous number of like legitimate use case transactions with Bitcoin. I would say the first guys were, I think, like, it seems like the first wave were really sort of like the cypherpunks, and then sort of like after that were like the super nerds that sort of like stumbled into it, and then after that it seemed like drug people and poker players like were the next like waves to
you said drug people.
Yeah, just like dark web, like whatever, like people.
Silk Road. That's how I first came across. That's how I first came across it, but I didn't. I guess kind of like you at first. No. But I didn't. I was just like, oh, this is just a way to get around. I wasn't as informed back, at that time point. But
this would have been great back in the day to move money around the world. Jeez.
Yeah.
Those Swiss bankers, they would have been pretty obsolete back then.
Yeah.
Jeez. I've got like 30 scams going in my head now thinking about this.
We'll talk once we turn the record off.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, but Ryan, what's your attack, if any, or your strategy for traditional markets?
Honestly, I don't know anything about how to have an edge in traditional markets. Like I get that I get the idea of, sort of like on the one hand, hardcore value investing. On the other hand, there's sort of like, I guess, growth, which you're sort of anticipating what, the DCF will be over the course of this business history. And then I suppose there's also a bit of a gamemanship, of these guys long or short this particular asset. And they're sort of like opening themselves up to being exploitable. And then that creates like a wave of everybody's like exploiting everybody else. And then like one side wins and the other side doesn't. But I really, for all of my interest in the topic broadly, like there's very few books that are read on like, it's kind of just like poker actually, on like the cutting edge of,
it is, yeah,
what it is to beat. So I don't know anything about how to create an edge there. So I don't know. I just have, I just buy VXUS, VTI, Vanguard, every international stock, every US stock. And then I hope that, the world doesn't end, but it's becoming less and less profitable.
What's your, I know you got some views on the macro outlook on things.
That would be, if I were to somehow end up in a very conventional finance job that isn't the HFT thing I'm working on, I do find global macro to be fascinating, because of like how many, that seems like a spot where sort of like creativity and a lot of effort for like thinking about how everything will play out, would be super interesting. So that's sort of like the one thing. As far as like what my outlook looks like, they're long. I'll try to consolidate. Basically, like it's. I have one friend who is a trader. He trades commodities in Chicago, and he's just like, we play Counter-Strike together, and he's just like, listen, the secret that I've learned about being a trader is just everything's a fucking Ponzi. Like the whole world's a goddamn Ponzi, and at some point it like ends, but. What's interesting is that, especially with the Ponzi, like for instance, the US dollar, and that's sort of, it's kind of is, kind of isn't, that thing can go on for quite some time, and for quite a lot of money. So I don't know. It seems like the US is in a really good, from a macro perspective, it seems like the US is in a really good position. Our only real worry seems to be, innovation seems to have been slowed, and there's political unrest is rising, but it seems like we hold every other card, and it seems like political unrest is rising globally, and it seems like innovation's rising in China, which is not particularly good for us, but it's still pretty good here. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like we're in a good spot, and I like the idea of holding U.S. real estate and U.S. equities.
When you say innovation slowing here, what's how are you drawing that conclusion? Where's that coming from?
Well, Peter Thiel would probably do a better job of explaining it. Watch basically everything him and Eric have put out, Eric Weinstein. But the way he would frame it is that we've had tremendous growth in the world of bits, meaning computers, and very little in the realm of atoms. And Eric is now on a crusade to get more funding for theoretical physics, because his contention is that a lot of the innovation does sort of seem to come from physics. But it does sort of, I'll frame it a little differently. So a big part of the inequality question or the political unrest, I feel like the center of the political unrest in the US is that labor's share of national income has just gone down basically every year since like the early 1970s. And a big part of the reason for that is globalization. Essentially, their labor, their jobs are being, shipped off overseas. And what's sort of like a sad bent to that is that is that somebody in Bangladesh or China or wherever could compete with an American. You know, you would imagine that they would have every opportunity, that there would be, you know, businesses here doing new things, you know, finding out new ways to do it. And it seems like there's just an epidemic of both arbitrage, meaning labor arbitrage, and rent seeking. And it seems like there's sort of like not, you know, new sort of like ways of doing things. Like a really good example of this would be, for instance, the telecom companies or the cable companies, you know, like, or transportation for that matter. Like transportation speeds haven't really improved much over the last several decades. And I don't know if anybody here has dealt with Comcast or Cox, or in my case, Spectrum. It's a complete disaster. And these guys are just sort of fat and happy. And, you know, have sort of their narrative. Oils, you know, oil versus nuclear, another one. Or just energy in general. Cars, I mean, like Elon's it was like a freak, you know, it was like a freak anomaly. And I think, like, actually, I was just talking to my friend. He was like, yeah, if Elon has worked for GM or Daimler, they would be like, shut up, nerd. Like, you're going to get us all fired, right? There's like the problem is, and this is a point that Eric would bring up, is that there's two, like, it's not just Elon. There's a bunch of fucking Elons out there, and we aren't really like empowering them to innovate. And there shouldn't be this, like, while I think the working class has a legitimate gripe at the elites for essentially, you know, playing carrot and a stick with them, essentially, you know, shipping their jobs, you know, elsewhere and crushing their labor. You know, another sort of bent to that is definitely that they shouldn't. It's kind of good for them to have done that, but it's bad for us to be in a position where, like, yeah, we like, there isn't like a new, like a, you know, we have Apple, you know, we have all the tech companies, and then Tesla sort of like thrown in there, but like we should be making like electric airplanes and like hyperloops and all kinds of shit. That is, you know, that is new, that then sort of this third world can then copy us on. And I think that I see the point that they're making where it feels like that has slowed.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, wouldn't you think, I mean, at least this is my theory, right?
Oh, sorry. One other point on that.
Yeah.
Is there's a book called Triumph of the City. And we can talk about China for quite some time, but one of the advantages China has is that they don't give a fuck about zoning laws. And so like they're able to build cities, and what you end up finding is that cities are just super efficient for young people to congregate, young people, you know, like 20 through 40, to congregate in a city, and then, you know, build industry, build businesses, work in their, you know, sort of formative, hungry working years. And the place where this is most pronounced in the US is in San Francisco, where they're not allowed to build skyscrapers because, as some of the venture capitalists out there would put it, slumlords have a stranglehold on the zoning laws. And, you know, are looking out for sort of their best interest. They make a tremendous amount of money because, you know, demand sky high in San Francisco, supply is quite fixed and not really nearly enough to not spend $4,000 for one bedroom. And this is a stupid problem for us to be having. It's like the sort of catch-22 of like America. This is a stupid problem for us to be having, but these people have rights, and China, you don't have rights. Like the government just kind of does whatever they want. So like they sort of like are edging us out in this way. It really just strikes me as a spot where we need to just kind of cut a deal with these guys and, you know, just pay them 50% above market for their property, and then just start building skyscrapers there so people can work. But yeah, I think that's like another thing that's holding us back.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know too much about that. I mean, I guess like, at least the way I've always been thinking about this, and this is not my like my own thought. It's not original thought, but talking about like, so these people that are in positions to stifle innovation, for example, they're mostly like from the baby boomer generation, correct?
Yeah.
There's a larger percent of baby boomers as opposed to every other generation. You understand what I'm saying? So that there's just more baby boomers.
The demography of the U.S. is weird in that, like,
right.
It's not so. If you look from like sort of like the baby boomers down, it's very flat. It's like normally like a pyramid, or you're kind of hoping for a pyramid. Whereas in the U.S., it's actually quite flat, which is good, by the way. Like for instance, in China, you know, the one-child policies are wreaking havoc, and they're about to have a much too small, let's say, young working class. But yeah, the U.S. is quite flat, so it is a little bit unusual that there's so many of them.
Right. So I think that, this is me speculating, Ryan, that could be stifling, and like they're still holding on to, old school values, old school way of doing things. And then like as time goes on, we might see an uptick back in innovation as, our generation gets into more of these positions, et cetera. Cause I mean, and I think you'd agree with me, like just the way China is set up, man, like I don't think like innovation can outproduce, just that style of government cannot produce a democracy or a capitalist society.
I would tend to agree. But I would tend to agree that, like, generally speaking, their whole shtick has just been to like. But have you ever been in a Huawei store?
No.
You know what I'm talking about? Huawei is like the Apple. They like cloned Apple.
Very familiar.
Yeah. Huawei is like to a T cloned Apple. And I was just in Asia for a little while, and like I went into Huawei, and bro, it looks like an Apple store. Giant glass windows, wooden tables, iMacs, and like iPhones everywhere. Like it is a fucking clone. It's the exact.
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're holding the lady, hostage in Canada up here. So,
Really?
Well, I mean, the CEO's daughter, right?
Of Huawei?
Right, of one of those Chinese companies, right?
I actually was not familiar. I don't know.
Well, it's actually quite an international incident.
That's quite an incident,
right? Because the U.S. told us to grab her, right? And and that's what's going on. And she's basically living in a $7 million house in Vancouver, shopping every day while she's waiting extradition to the United States.
Sounds like she's living the dream.
Well, that's what she gets. See, the thing is, she's a billionaire. She should have taken a private plane instead of commercial. That's what you get.
Lesson learned. Last time I'll ever fly first class.
Just take your own plane, right?
Right.
Shit. Oh man. All right. Let's see what else I got here.
Hang on. So one point about that.
Go
So, I would tend to agree that they're the repressive nature that their government has over speech and freedom.
Yeah.
You would. I think it's safe to both expect and hope that is not a particularly innovative sort of like environment.
It's not.
But I would say we don't know for sure, and sadly we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out, and like my fingers are crossed.
Yeah. So well, as gamblers though, right? I wouldn't bet on the China side. That's just.
I wouldn't either.
Right.
I had a tweet about this. I don't know if I can remember all the reasons, but if you
did, no, it was good. Yeah, I commented on it.
Yeah. Let's see if I can run through this. So first of all, they can't ever, and I'll spare the details, but they can't ever become the world reserve currency. They're not exporting their culture. They're not exporting their language. They don't have rule of law. The capital flies out of the country, not into it. They have a bunch of concentration camps. Hong Kong's not making any friends. And they're kind of like on so because of the currency piece, they desperately need to import a lot of natural resources. Bretton Woods is coming to an end. It'll be interesting to see what they do as far as oil goes. That could lead them to a famine at any given moment, and the U.S. will be maybe a little bit more contentious about, allowing oil shipments from where they get most of their oil from the Gulf to China.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of see how that plays out, but they need. Right now, they basically use foreign currency to settle their trade deficit. And if they ever run out of foreign currency, their currency will hyperinflate and they'll descend into revolution. There's actually a variety of ways they can descend into revolution, but that's sort of like the primary factors. So it's like it's looming. It's a bit of a hanging chad. It's sort of the consequences of this, by the way, what they've achieved over the last 5 decades is spectacular. Bringing 400 million people out of poverty and the development of their city, is an unbelievable achievement. And despite all the CCP's failings, broadly at this point, and probably even in the long run, not to say they couldn't have done it better, but have really served their people, quite well. They've done a great job, even in spite of all the, on the, you know, the one side human rights violations, like a lot of people are better off for it. But they might have to pay the piper.
I can give you a counter. I don't know if this is so much like a counterpoint, but to not to undermine the, like you said, the progress that they've made, but they also said it's not surprising when you come out of, I'm not exactly privy to their government structure now, but when you go from the communism to what it is now, like you're going to expect there should be a bump, you know, as far as whatever they got going on. But that's
communism to like a pseudo free market.
Yeah, because
communism when we feel like it.
Yeah, because communism is so repressive to innovation, hoarding of resources, that so like when you break off from that, you should expect a bump in all other areas.
Well, what they've done is actually quite fascinating, and something that I play around with in my mind, of this idea of like it's sort of like a free market until you get to a certain size. And then it essentially becomes nationalized. But they are very goal driven in the sense that they are very driven by both status and material wealth. So they keep, it's like, you know, when the government takes over whatever, you know, Huawei or Tencent or whatever, they're still focused on making as much money as possible. Like, in fact, when I was in Bali last year, and I feel like I met this Chinese girl who's just like a regular Chinese citizen. I feel like she summed it up really well. She's like, in China, we just want to be happy and rich. And I was like, that's exactly what they want in China. They just want to be happy and rich, probably in the reverse order, but like, that's what they want.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, and I feel like that's the sense I get, the implicit deal that the people have on some level, whether or not they know it or don't, with the CCP.
Yeah.
And so, you know, right now they're rich, they're happy and rich.
Yeah.
And if for some reason they're not, they're out. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Tell you what, if it's like, if I think about, like, if it's a TV show, and like, I can't wait for the next season. Like, it's so good.
Oh, that's what I always thought, man. Like, I think real life is like better than fiction, to be honest. That's just me. But Jay, would you ever think we got two poker players talking like geopolitics, man?
I don't know. My life has been stranger than fiction, so yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Jay, tell Ryan. Actually, hold on. Before we get back into poker, because there's some more poker stuff I want to talk. But
shoot.
Okay. Oh, I guess this is kind of poker related. Ryan, when I came over to trading, more immersed in the trading community, people have like a sense of reverence for Annie Duke. In her book.
Yeah.
What's your take there?
Annie Duke is like one of the worst people in poker ever. And like, if you have somehow been hoodwinked into thinking she knows what she's talking about, I have bad news for you. She's clueless, and you need to take an L.
See, the thing is, all the traders.
Yeah, tell them. Yeah,
Brian, I have no idea who she is. See, my reference from poker, and I'll get into that a little bit, is rounders, right? Okay, so that's very limited knowledge. And all these traders, Annie Duke this, Annie Duke that, Annie Duke this. They're always talking about Annie Duke. And then I meet Ray and a couple of other like people who like do this for a living, and they're like, and I'm like, I haven't read the book. I don't know anything about poker, but man, does she get a lot of like, I mean, she sold a lot of those books to the trading community.
She's like one of those people that like, comes from the poker community, and she's on some show or she's doing something, and she's like, I'm a poker player. And I'm just like, oh God, they're going to think I'm like this. Oh no, like, we're not like the like, you know, the success stories from poker are not, she's like a laughing stock amongst like the, you know, the truly elite, you know, poker zeitgeist.
Ryan, like I was so baffled, and like people who are highly respected within the trading community vouch for her book, and I felt like I had to start speaking out against this. But I'm new to the trading community, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, This is ridiculous. I come from poker, and she is not even respected and welcomed in the poker community. Right. So what she's claiming to have expertise in, being a decision-making expert, she's not even respected in that community. So people don't vet her out. I don't know.
don't
I don't
know.
know, dude. I feel like I should read her book. Because like I haven't read her book because I'm like this, like LOL, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
But like now, like with all the success she's had, maybe I should like read her book and be like, okay, I'll do this like properly, and like I'll write my own book, and then I'll be like the best-selling like.
Well, the thing is, a lot
guy.
of these traders who quote her book, and once again, I have to say, I have no clue what the hell they're talking about. They use it as, you should read this book; it'll make you a better trader. And so, and then Ray was like, as soon as he did one of his, right, I was like, oh, okay, forget that, because he knows what he.
Yeah, it's a joke. Well, no, because I think but Ryan, this goes to my point before. I was saying, like, I think a lot of these people, I guess me coming into trading was a little bit different, right? Because I'm coming from a poker background, I already kind of have that analytical thinking. A lot of these people who are, we deal with trading are like 9-to-5 job types. And so I don't think they're used to thinking in like a game theoretical manner or analyzing risk, reward. And so I think that's why people like, they see this book and they're like, oh, wow. Whereas like someone who has a gaming background already, like these are intuitive things. So it's like, or like you said, it's already just a part of our being.
Yeah, no, totally. If I had a best-selling book in me that like would be hard for me to write because it would be almost like so obvious that like I couldn't believe that like this is a chapter.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't, and because like I'm in my fucking ivory tower over here clicking away, not telling it, I talk to like 3 people about shit, right? Like like in some sense you like, store up knowledge and yeah, you sort of don't release to the world like they're.
Oh, dude, it's so tilting. It's so tilting. I mean, and even people I would even go as far as some people who I've even learned like trading from, especially on some of like the quantitative side of things, or like promoting her book, be like, oh, this was a great podcast. I'm like, and this dude we used to ask me about poker all the time. I'm like, dude, no, man, like, listen, no, even if I don't know what's in her book, but just her character alone, like, and what
there's no chance she's written a good book. No chance.
Right. No. What do you think about? I just actually came from Amazon the other day. I got it. Maria Kornikova's book. The Biggest Bluff. Have you?
I haven't read that. I've listened to like a little bit of her on podcast. My sense is that she's a very likable writer and that she had like an adventure in poker.
Yeah. And
she'll do a good job of writing like a good book that'll be like a good read.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but
I think so.
I definitely don't get the sense that she's, she sort of like went through all like the poker's elite mind type, and was like was like sort of like this interactive observer.
Yeah.
And I haven't read the book, but like I imagine it's a pretty good book and it's a pretty good read.
Yeah, I think so too. It's funny. Another thing that came up, like there's this guy who's like trying to say like because the book's marketed like, oh, she's like a world champion because I guess she won a tournament. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? And right. some guy, and I'm trying to explain to this guy, I'm like, no, like she's a writer, and she did this so she could write about it. She went under the experience of playing poker, right? I'm assuming that was the thing, right? So she got with Seidel to write about it. He's like, oh no, she's a world champion. I'm like, dude, like I don't know. I don't even know why I try and argue with these people. They just fucking told me. I'm like, you guys don't know. I'm like, yo, like I was. Like I've been immersed in poker for close to a decade. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's like, don't tell me, or like these people, I come to trading and people are just spouting out Annie Duke and like all this other shit. And I'm like, you guys have no clue, man. And like, maybe there's a good edge here for me then in trading.
I'll say probably. I mean, yeah, that is. Honestly, ideally, that is kind of in fairness.
I'm like, there's probably a good edge here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The one thing I will say about that is that it is kind of like a matter of perspective. Especially from the upswing side of things, where I'll say it's like if there's like the clickbait world or like optimizing click through type stuff.
Right.
I don't know. Like maybe that is just the best. Like maybe it's like a little bit dishonest, but it is sort of the best way to frame it. I would not have framed it that way, but like maybe it gets the highest conversions, and it is a little bothersome, but I'm like willing to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Well, no, I was not necessarily. I understand that point, and I'm not knocking her for that because she does seem like a genuine person.
Yeah.
I guess there's more of these other people who like promote Annie Duke or her and say like, oh, they're like.
Well, Annie Duke is like, she's also like
blasphemous.
Fraudster. I mean, the other problem with Annie Duke is that she like scammed a bunch of people. So like that's like, which is like a whole other like that is separate from her like being an uninteresting poker mind. But then on the other side, she's also like a fraudster. So like I just that one does rub me the wrong way.
Yeah. No, definitely. All right. Let's see, JJ. Any other trading questions for him before I go back into poker?
No, go back into poker. I'm enjoying this. My old days of poker. I have a buddy of mine. He's been a professional poker player since 1982. He's never played in front of a computer, and he's a poker player. And when he hits it, he's down in Costa Rica, and then when he's not, he's working as a waiter in a French restaurant. So, you know, it's an interest. And I'd go and pick him up at these places 4 a.m, and it's always in the back of some degenerate restaurant, and everyone's carrying a piece. Everyone's got a heater, right? And it's all these really sketchy looking people, and there's all this money all over the place. I'm like, it's very, very interesting to see the progression, what you guys are doing with this now.
Yeah, it was different when I told them, I'm like, no, like I display at my house, fire
I
up
was
a
like,
few
oh,
tables.
okay.
Like, no.
I was like, oh, you don't have to carry a heat. You don't have to carry a gun. Oh, okay,
like, no,
cool. Nice.
But how are we on time, Ryan? We good? Because I got a few more things for you. All right, cool.
No, let's go for it.
So I started off playing Hold'em. I went to PLO probably like, I don't know, I want to say like 13 and 14. That's when I really grinded PLO back like in the Poker Juice days. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Poker Juice.
Wait, that sounds familiar.
It was one of the softwares.
I remember.
This was like pre-solver. Yeah. This was pre-solver. I was with Poker Juice. I was real heavy on that, but being American, like I wanted to get more hands in, to be honest. So I went back to Hold'em because they got the zone tables on Bovada Ignition.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm starting to get an interest back in PLO, right? But I haven't done. I've done pretty much zero solver work, right?
Yep.
For PLO, I speculate though there is so, assuming I've done a lot of Hold'em solver work, which I have. How much translation is there over to PLO? Like certain, like just concepts, betting, abstractions, etc. I don't know if I'm that's making sense to you.
So I would, sure. So I'll say, I'll just start talking. I don't know.
Go, yeah.
So the first thing, one of the things that a solver would teach you, you would also learn this if you followed the Claudica or Libratus challenge, is that the sense you get from these solved or optimized solutions is that it heavily focuses on front end aggression and optimizing your ranges from pre-flop and on the flop around that. So I'm going to give you an example. Let's say it's a heads up sit and go. Let's say we're 13 blinds deep in a heads up sit and go. The way it will play is it will raise all of its, let's say, tier 1 hands. And this is broadly speaking, it splits a bunch of combos. But broadly speaking, it'll raise all of its tier 1 hands, limp all of its tier 2 hands, and then fold all of its tier 3 hands. Now, the way a human or most humans have done this is they balance. They like throw a couple aces, ace kings into those limbs to balance out the tier 2s. Not what a solver does. Okay. Solver just raises all the good hands, let's say 4 tiers. Limp raises all of the tier 1 hands, limps all the tier 2 hands to limp call the jam,
right.
Limps all the tier 3 hands to limp fold to the jam, folds all the tier 4 hands.
Right,
so that's a solver concept that I think honestly transcends poker. Like I think that's just it's like a thing of the universe. And that will be broadly true, and that will show up in a lot of pre-flop and flop decisions.
Yeah.
In pre-flop hand range as well as flop hand range and bet size. And that'll sort of like be true. But the thing about Hold'em is that whether you have a bluff or a value bet, the strength of your hand where it ranks is like quite clear. And then there's like a lot of spots where you kind of have like, we'll just broad strokes speaking, have the nuts or nothing, and then they have like a bluff catcher. And then maybe nothing. And then like, maybe you're supposed to bluff, maybe they're supposed to call, and you kind of have it really down. They're kind of guessing. Whereas like PLO is a more technical game in the sense that the specific cards that you have in your hand govern action a lot more. There's
interesting
more about the specific cards you have on your hand and the hands on the cards on the board that dictate the best way to play your hand from like a, let's say, purely theoretical standpoint.
Yeah.
So there's more of you sort of putting those pieces of the puzzle together rather than running a good enough RNG on whether or not you're supposed to call or bluff in Hold'em. And that's sort of what Hold'em generated into for me. So I became, kind of bored with it. And then because PLO, there's like, it's just such a diverse game. There's so much going on. There's so many different spots, and just, you change one variable and then you go from C betting 70 to 20 or 20 to 70. And there's just a lot of opportunity to discover and uncover, new things that just keeps me engaged.
Mm-hmm. You think I could jump into a live PLO game and be okay? Like, let's say like maybe like they run like a 5-5 game down here.
I don't know. I don't know enough about your game. I mean, I would say probably, you know what you should do? Upswing Poker has this thing called the PLO matrix, which is like a PLO hand chart. You have to kind of get comfortable using it, about clicking around, but it literally is like the pre-flop PLO like solution.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And if you could like see that, to see how like you'd have to spend like an hour or two with it, clicking around, see, what are your really good raises, 3 bets, 4 bets, how loose are you really in the big blind? What is a good flat call? Like, it's going to rank hands in ways that are not intuitive to you. Mm-hmm. It's going to teach you that honestly is what got me, I don't say back into it, but like back into it, and got me thinking about the game differently. And it's like, because you'll look at the pre-flop solution, and you can, especially if you've been playing poker for a long time, you can intuit like that in some sense should then inform what you should do post-flop, because there's there's reasons why it favors this hand versus this hand. And then as you start to sort of like unwind these things post-flop, it really comes to light. And then, you can really put a lot of like strategic distance between yourself and the competition.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've been wanting to, just because, like I say, in this past year, I've been doing other things, not grinding as heavy, but like I want to jump into PLO now. But like I said, it's been years since I grinded PLO. Then this was pre-solver, and I don't know if I feel comfortable doing it without like at least running some sims, you know what I'm saying? So
dude, you should check out the Upswing course. Like, running the sims in PLO is like a nightmare, but like we had like a guy who's like this, basically like we had the sim master make like the sim master course.
Yeah.
And like, he did a tremendous amount of work, and then also would like break it into concepts and a couple like tables and stuff, so you could like equip sort of reference thing.
Yeah.
That course is unfucking believable. Like, I can't believe, I mean, I'm selling it, so like whatever, but I mean, it's kept me, I definitely was like falling behind because it took a lot of time off, and going through that kept me, like very, very, very competitive.
So. Right. Yeah, because I mean, there's a part of me that's just like, man, fuck it. Like, I think like my 2014 PLO knowledge could like beat a 5-5 live game in Florida. I mean, that's me speculating, but I don't know.
What I'm saying, just put like a little bit of work in. Like,
no, for sure.
Like, a tiny bit of work, like you'll be amazed at like. Yeah, because it really is. It's weird. It's like dipping into like alien technology or something, and then going to the Stone Ages and playing it. Like that's how like stark it is. It's like, it's crazy. Like, I don't, there's listeners, there's people out there in the ether that like are looking like, I want to make money, and like seriously, like using the PLO matrix. You don't have to use the course. Using the PLO matrix, playing some like online PLO, losing, failing, whatever, but just like playing in tough games, figuring it out, and then going and playing live. Like, I can't imagine you not having $100 hourly after like, a couple months of diligent work. And I know for some people that's like a dream. So
yeah, for sure.
Put that out there.
Now I've seen you stream. I don't think you can't play. Well, I don't know. From Nevada, right? Bovada Ignition. You can't. Is that no go from Nevada or?
I don't know where it's at now. I haven't played on there in a while. I've honestly played ACR and WSOP have been like plenty of action.
Yeah.
Haven't even really had the need.
What were your thoughts on anonymous, playing in anonymous games?
I love it, with the exception of like every once in a while, like I want to, like me and a reg just want to play heads up.
Yeah.
And I think it's good. I think we should be like sort of like allowed to do, or like it would be nice somehow.
Yeah.
To do that. But honestly, like, yeah, I think anonymous, like I would prefer, if like we could just make everything anonymous, I would prefer that.
Yeah. I mean, it really sucked, man. A few years ago, they changed it. Like, so like, I don't know, you probably remember, but like, now you play Ignition, Bovada, they sit you down right away. Like you don't actually get to choose the table. You don't see how many people are playing. They took away the heads up. Well, I guess they do have heads up table, but no one sits them. So yeah,
I think it's great. Yeah, you have to like obfuscate. You have to take away the ability to be predatory as much as possible.
Yeah, sure.
It's good for it's good for everybody. It's good for the only people it's not good for are like the tight, boring, really nitty bum hunters who, frankly, in terms, especially from like the perspective of the site, in terms of like how much rake they pay versus how much money they take off are like terrible.
Yeah.
And they also like from that perspective, then also like, do they create action? The answer is no. So like those are your most useless players. Like no one likes them.
Yeah.
But yeah, making it anonymous encourages people generally to play, to take risks, and it's like very good for the recreational players in the sense that they're preyed upon. You know, they have much better shot. They've seen us with other recreational players, and the behavior towards them is going to be far less predatory. So
yeah,
the more you can do in that direction, like I had before, especially given like years ago, I could maybe have gone either way and probably would not have been on as enthusiastic about that. But I would say, given the state of things, like we got to start making some dramatic changes to encourage action.
Now the live games going on right now in Vegas, what are they keeping it like? Because here they have it like 6-handed at most places. It's like socially distanced. What is it like in Vegas?
Yeah, it's good. It's 6-handed.
Yeah, 6.
6-handed. They got the plexiglass in there. They clean every time you sit down. They clean the seat. It's honestly like it's nice. It's nice in the sense that like the poker rooms in some ways have kind of like elevated their game and from the treating the customer service sort of perspective, which is kind of nice. I expect that to stay. It's also really nice that it's 6-handed.
Yeah,
definitely. I'm definitely a big fan of that. It really sucks. It's hard to talk to people. And for me, that's one of the things I like the most about live poker. So that is kind of like a letdown. But I don't know, games are good. And I know, people are still coming to Vegas like everybody. I think the quarantine has affected people in different ways. And, there are definitely still people coming to Vegas that just need their release. So, games have been fun.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy the 6-handed aspect. That's why I've been playing more live than, really ever. I don't normally go play live much. I almost came out there a couple of weeks ago. I had a bunch of my Brazilian friends. Shout out to them. They're listening. They went out there. They were wilding out at the Bellagio, they told me. So
nice. Yeah. I've met some people from Florida, from Europe, like a couple Asians, like they're just whatever, man.
I was so close. They let me know they was leaving Friday. They let me know Thursday. I had to get someone to watch my son. Couldn't do it in time. So, it is what it is.
Now, Ryan, you live in Vegas, right?
Yeah. Many years now. Yeah.
Oh, really? How do you like living there?
It's like a nice place to be, like some chunk of the year, but I think I get a little bit cooped up here. There's kind of like two worlds. There's sort of like the strip and off the strip. This strip is a strip. I think you kind of get it.
Yeah.
Restaurants.
Well, I used to have an apartment. I used to have an apartment at the Meridian.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I used to live.
Yeah, just off Flamingo there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but now I have a house, and I'm really close to everything, but I'm kind of immediately like nowhere. There's like a bunch of dirt roads or dirt lots and stuff around me, which is quite nice and peaceful. But yeah, I don't know. I've been here for about 10 years, and I've seen sort of a spectacular transition off the strip, where there's like all kinds of stuff going on off the strip, especially Summerlin and Henderson. They're kind of like their own little respective cities.
Interesting.
And I don't know, I have like a bunch of friends here, and it's not really all that much different from living in like a suburb of Arizona for me. And then the nice thing is if I want to tap in and, go to the strip to, go party or go to a nice restaurant or shop or whatever, I have it there. But I mostly stay away from it and then go once a week, once every 10 days, something like that.
Interesting.
Also, no state income tax is like, it's pretty good.
That's good.
So,
yes. That is nice.
But I have to tell you though, I do really miss the East Coast. And I've been thinking about going back for a while, and I kind of want to do like 6 months in New York, like the good 6 months in New York, and see how I like it.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. I'm actually my partner got into a PhD program at Oxford in October. So I'm going to go to England for the winter, which I swore I would never do, but I feel like we have to do it because it's too good of a spot.
Yeah.
And that's going to be tough. And then, I don't know, hopefully everything kind of goes according to plan. And then after that, you know, the weather gets nicer. Maybe I'll do my stint in New York there and kind of see how I feel. I do feel like I'm a little bit up in the air, and I have like Vegas as a home base, but I think maybe one more home base would be good for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. I've thought about it too, man. I'm just such an East Coast guy. I don't know, man. It's just where my comfortability is. I mean, Florida's nice too, man. I really enjoy living down here as well. You're well traveled, Ryan. What's your favorite world city?
I don't know if I'll just keep it like my list is essentially Vancouver, Melbourne, Tokyo. I mean, I think Bangkok slightly less, but like Bangkok a little bit less than those. And I was just in Cape Town. I thought that was absolutely phenomenal, and I thought Barcelona was pretty spectacular as well. But Cape Town was like a sleeper. It was like a dark horse. Like it's a place that I would never have thought to go, but I had some old poker friends tell me to go, and then my one friend loves black chicks, and like he's been all over Africa, and he's like, "Bro, we're going," and I'm like, "All right, let's go." And I was just like blown away by Cape Town. Like I was just simply like blown away.
Interesting. And Vancouver, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think, yeah.
Really?
I lived there. Is that where you're at now?
No, I'm back in Saskatchewan, but I was there for 26 years.
Oh, wow. How did you end up in Vancouver?
Finished university in microbiology, moved out there with a bunch of buddies in 1990, worked as a bouncer. That's where I met the traders from the Vancouver Stock Exchange, and Red Liars Poker, one of them gave it to me, booked by Michael Lewis.
I know it, yeah.
And I was hooked and weaseled my way in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vancouver is an unbelievable, like I kind of thought that like maybe in my retirement, or maybe, I don't know, like I one potential end game for my life is I spend 6 months in Vancouver, gets cold and rainy, I go to Melbourne, I spend the good 6 months there, and as far as I can tell, like Melbourne and Vancouver are almost like inverted. It's like the Southern Hemisphere's answer to Vancouver.
Oh yeah.
What have you. So yeah, I thought about that, and I spent a lot of time there playing poker. Like that was like the city we would travel to live in.
Okay. Cool.
And play online. So absolutely fell in love with the city. So it's great.
All right, awesome. We'll do a couple rapid fire questions here, Ryan.
Shoot.
To wrap this up. All right. Books you've been reading lately?
The first one comes to mind is Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Unbelievable read. The Jim Simons book. I don't even remember the title of it. Absolutely fantastic. And
Man Who Solved the Market, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the author on.
We had the author on. Yeah, we had the author on. Yep.
Oh, nice. Oh, I got to go back and listen to that one.
Yeah.
And God, there's one other book I'm reading right now. I can't remember what it is. So sorry. Just gonna have to give you those two for now.
That's good. Musical taste.
I love house. Mostly techno and deep house, but most things that aren't. I like a little bit of trap, but I don't like so much big room house. And then I also like hip hop, but I am kind of picky about that. I played my buddy one of my favorite songs. It's a song called Bible by Jizza, Genius.
Oh yeah. I know that one. Yeah. Liquid Sword. I think it's off of Liquid Swords.
Yeah, that album was unbelievable.
Very good. Yep.
And then also, and I'll do some like alternative rock type stuff. Like I think Tame Impala is like the sickest. He's like a psychedelic rock type guy. But yeah, that's
all right. Diverse, good. Favorite movie or movies?
Favorite movie is called Primer. I won't tell anybody what it's about. Don't look up what it's about. If you're into having your mind fucking blown, watch Primer. It's going to be tough. You're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to be patient, but like the payoff is unbelievable.
Primer.
Other than that, Big Lebowski is up there. And
love that one.
I'm super. I mostly don't like movies. Like most movies, I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Like how bad this movie is. But then like every once in a while, I'm like, you guys got it, nice.
Yeah.
I rewatched The Matrix too, and like I actually didn't appreciate how good that was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I was like, when I was a kid, I watched it, I was like, oh my God, yeah, like lasers, let's go, like everything slow down. I'm in The Matrix. And then like rewatching it now with sort of like a greater context for the story, I was like, damn, these guys are fucking good. So
Yeah. I know. I've noticed that about a lot of movies I've seen in the youth, and then as you grow, you see it from a different context.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, you're on death row. What's going to be your last meal?
Oof. I thought about this myself, and I don't know if I have a great answer. I would say maybe for dessert, butter cake. And like maybe like pizza, a cheesecake, and butter cake.
A cheesesteak. Okay, that's
Yeah.
a very Philadelphia.
Very I would keep it
Yeah.
super. Actually, you know what's great? I made cheese. I like my buddy from Philly's over now, and he's like, "Dude, we gotta make cheesesteaks." And I'm like, I spent like an hour going to all the stores getting like the perfect ingredients, and we made them this morning. And
Right.
yeah, I would keep it. I don't know. I've eaten at all the like the Michelin like whatever restaurants and like all that, and it's cool and it's great. But like dog cheesesteak and pizzas, like it's just the truth. Like
Can't go wrong.
Can't
go wrong. All right. Toughest poker player that you've played against?
Toughest. Okay, so here's the thing: is that we, like me and Doug, think about like good players and tough players like a little bit differently.
Okay. Wait, like you guys disagree, or you guys think of?
No. In the sense that like when we think of like somebody that's tough, like
yeah,
you know, I would probably say Jungle Man. I would say for the way you phrase this question, probably Jungle Man.
Yeah.
Because and I'll tell you why. Because Jungle will, Jungle will raise in spots where most players won't. He'll develop raising ranges in spots that most players won't. He'll take the game to a logical extreme in the sense that like he'll put all the chips in. He'll like open up a door and call it all off, bluff it all off, like whatever. Develop raising ranges where like he kind of can't have it, and you could have it, but you probably don't. You probably mostly have like a second tier thinner value bet, and like so like he'll start raising, and then like his salute, and this is what you're supposed to do. This is actually a solver. A solver would do this, and he was just like way ahead of the curve on this. Granted, he did some like whack ass jungle shit that like you're not supposed to do, but like he conceptually was right in the sense that like you're still supposed to raise because raising's better than calling.
Right.
And if they re-raise you, you just fucking call. You're not like, oh, but like I'm capped. You're just like, yeah, I'm capped, call. Like this is the top. Like that's just what it is. And he's just like relentless. And I remember a couple sessions. I remember 2 sessions specifically versus him. Like one where I won, one where we're playing like 5,100 to limit, and I was, or maybe even 1-2, and I was winning, and he was just like, I remember he 3-bet. I call with 6s. He bet 10-10-4. I raise. He called. Turns a card. I bet. He called. River's a card. I shove. He calls, and like he has ace king. He like insta called the river. Yeah. And I was like, I knew you were gonna do it. What the fuck's the matter with you? And like we just played like a couple more ridiculous hands, and I'm like, you know what, this guy's out of his fucking mind. He's like tilting, but like he's weird. Like he tilts and like he plays worse but crazy and different, and it's not like the way most people tilt. And then I remember we played another session where like I don't know if he was on Adderall, but like it was one of the few sessions where I was on Adderall. And we played for like 8 hours. It was, and I don't know if he actually.
It says, "Holy cow! Wow."
Yeah, and I actually don't know if you know what was interesting. I really wish we made content.
How many tables? Do you remember?
3 or 4.
Yeah, 3. So Jay, that's 8 hours of like simultaneous 3-4 tables.
Yeah, wow. we probably played like 5,000 hands or something. Like
Jesus.
And I actually don't know I don't think he knew it was me, but I knew it was him. And what was crazy is back in the day is like the heads up community was like kind of small, and there's all these sites, and we're trying to change our names to get action and do this and that. And like, I don't know how obvious it is if you're playing me, but it's very obvious if you're playing Jungle Man. If you played Jungle Man before, you'll know you're playing him.
Yeah.
And I remember, God, what was the hand? It was like, I don't remember the action. I just remember I had Queen Jack on Queen 10, like something, and like I bet like 2K on the river or 2,300 on the river, and he raised like 10K, and I like because I'm like, oh, this is Jungle Man. He has blocker. It was like, I think it was like Queen 10 to King, and I bet the river, and he was just like bombed it, and I was like, this motherfucker's got King 10, call, King 10, like 25K coming my way. Like,
yeah.
No doubt. But yeah, I would say toughest player number 1 is Jungle Man. Toughest player probably number 2 is probably Will Hasha. But he wasn't nearly as tough as Jungle Man. He was just, his fundamentals were too weak and his intuition was off in too many spots. But you know, he definitely got me in a couple sessions, so I don't want to take anything away from him.
Will Hasha, man, wow, I mean, does he still play?
Nah.
No, he doesn't, right? I'll say, yeah, that's taking it back a little bit now, yeah.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I remember I'll give you a dichotomy of 2 poker sessions, let's just say. So, this is years ago. Malaysia is playing in these full tilt 400, 800, 100 game, and this is back around. This is like there's like a 2-year period where me and Doug would like play high stakes and we would sell action to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to, like, if he was out of the country, like I could be doing something else, or if I was out of the country, he would be doing something. And like, you know, he would have my action, I would have his, and we just wanted always somebody to be out there, like waiting for the good games.
Yeah.
So, this was a summer, World Series was going on, and the like 100K or the million or something, it just happened, and Malaysia ended up being Paul Fua. Anyway, so I go up to Vancouver to play in these games, and as I get there, he leaves. So now I'm like up there with like nothing to do, like there's no games, and Will Hasha logs on, and there's like very little other high stakes action, and we start playing 100, 200 heads up. And we play for a couple days, and then we end up playing 200, 400, and we play for like 3 more days. I think we played like 5 days straight for like, 4 or 5 hours a day or something like that. So the highest stakes for it on 2+2, I think this was in 2013 for that month, is just like page after page of like Doughboy Fresh versus Will Hasha hands. Like it's just over. And like, it's just like out there, and like every day, like somebody's winning or losing like hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right. And it's just like a war. And I'm like locked in on this war. And I'm getting like no love. Like I'm getting like 2+2 love, but like my like people back home are like, they're ignoring me because somebody left out $500 and then somebody stole it, and like they're like whatever. Like they were dealing with that, and I'm like, yo, like we won like 300K today, you guys. Like it's cool. Like I got the 500.
Yeah.
And like, but they're just like all wrapped up in this like little bit of drama, and that drove me like insane. Like I'm like out here holding down the fucking fort, and you guys are worried about $500.
Yeah.
Dichotomize that with like a year later, I'm playing in some live tournament. This is when I got that like kick for live tournaments. Play some live tournament, and I win it. Ironically, versus Sauce Heads Up somehow. This is right after the Doug challenge a couple months later.
Yeah.
I win this tournament, and there's like a picture of me on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and like everybody I've ever known, like, dude, that's so sick. Like,
the tournament,
man. I'm like, guys, I want to fucking sit and go right now. You need to chill the fuck out.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Getting way too carried away. And yeah, that's kind of like for like an online poker player, it's like a very thankless glory. There's no glory.
It is
online cash. But if you play a tournament, it's devastation. Online cash can be a fun, happy, interesting way to make a good, consistent, stable living.
Yeah.
Online live tournaments are just devastation and glory. That's all. It's like 98% devastation and 2% like max glory, and like that's your life. That's what it is.
Yeah. No, there's no, and you know this, and then like I know someone like you would understand this, right? Like there's like you said, there's no glitz and glamour. I mean, especially for an American online poker. And I was always jealous, man, that like I didn't like, I played a little bit before Black Friday, Ryan, but not like, I was still a bit younger. I mean, I was still like Black Friday hit, I was 18, you know? So like I wasn't able to get myself fully immersed in it at that time. You know what I mean? And, you know, there's certain people down here that, you know, bank some tournaments, you know, for, you know, whatever, down at the Hard Rock or whatever. And, people always talk to me like, oh, like he won this tournament. Like you say you're so good. And I'm like, man, you guys just don't understand. Like, it's not even, you know, it's like oh, God. Like,
it's, you know what it's like? It's like, that's like the epitome of like Phil Hellmuth's like existence.
Yeah.
It's like, Phil, here are all these facts that like validate that like you're a clueless donkey. And he's like, yeah, check out these bracelets.
It's just, I don't even get tilted no more about it. I'm like, all right, like if your little buddy wants to like, you know, play heads up or he wants to come over, like whatever, we could do that. Like, it's just like, I don't, it's a different game. But, speaking of the tournaments, I remember, man, cause I'm down here, cause they were streaming it and I was at the Hard Rock. You came, you must give me second place. It was one of the high roller events down here.
Yeah.
It's been years ago. I remember it was at Hollywood, right? The Hard Rock. Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
I forget who you were playing. Who was?
Dude, that was crazy. So that was on the end of some trip where I had gone to. First, me and my girlfriend went to Paris. Then we went to Barcelona. I did really well in Barcelona, so I just played poker for like 14 days straight. And then I played. Then I went. Yeah, we went to Florida. I played the main event for like a day, busted. Then I played the 100K qualifier and I won it, or I got second. So that was like another day of poker. Then we played that.
Yeah.
That was another like 100K sit and go. And there was a discrepancy with the way they did the payouts. Like it was written down, it was one way. And what the guy told us when we asked him on the fly was like another way. And what happened was, basically, Scott Seaver busted 4 players, so he had 500K chips, and then everybody else had 100K, and it was whatever the payouts were better for him with the way that they were announced, not the way that they were written. So the tournament director guy comes over and is like, yeah, it's like the way it's written, like whatever, and we all peace out. And Scott just like sits there and like keeps arguing. And by the way, fuck Scott. And like somehow gets the fucking Indian chief guy to be like to switch it. So like I'm drunk. Now I'm drunk. It's a couple hours later. I'm drunk with my friends at dinner and I read on Twitter they're changing the payout structure, which like is like an egregious like lack of judgment. So now I'm like wasted at like 11 p.m. Like I got to be at this final table in like 10 hours or something. Like I don't have, so this isn't really my thing, but like I normally just like I'm like irate and just like berating like the Hard Rock on Twitter, basically, like calling them fraudster, whatever the hell I was saying. And then like I remember there was like a poker stars rep there, like trying to calm me down. I'm like, bro, I have like 12 hours to make this ready. You're gonna fuck us over. Like, what choice do you give me? Like, he's like, be reasonable. I'm like, are you out of your fucking mind? Anyway, we bitch and moan, and then we get the Indian guy shows up to that thing too, which was like kind of cool. Like he's like in like half suit, half like Indian stuff, and I'm like, this is the guy. I mean, yeah, this guy owns this casino. Like, I'm sure you're in charge. And I'm like, we like plead our case, and he's like, all right, third place gets 50K, and we're like, and at that point, it was like, look, you guys are like fucking idiots. Like, financially acknowledge that you're idiots, and like, it's done, right? They're like, part of it's the money, part of it's a gesture. 50K for third place, boom. And then I like stack Scott like 3 times, bust him out of the tournament, and he gets third. So like he got that 50K like from the goodness of my heart.
Yeah.
And I think I got second. So, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. No, I just remembered that because I mean that had to have been like, I don't know, 2000. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember 15, 14 around there.
14. Yeah, end of 14. Yeah.
14. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's see what else I got here. Okay, I guess we'll make this the last one here. Thoughts on microdosing psychedelics, or just psychedelics in general?
Just psychedelics. I mean, super interesting. Have definitely helped me a lot. Like I was saying, I have Asperger's, and I would say that psychedelics have really helped me, let's say, develop my humanity and think about things a different way. Actually, the way I got into poker was the first time I had psychedelics was I was 18 years old. I ate a bag, and my life was kind of falling apart at the time. Like I didn't have like proper guidance, and like I wasn't doing well in school. I just didn't really know what to do with myself. And I ate a bag of mushrooms, and it just like I used to look at the world very narrowly, and then it just like expanded in my mind. Like it was to this day probably the best thing I've ever done. And then it was like sort of this like take hold of the situation type moment where I'm like, yo, my life is falling apart. I got to do something. I got to make some motherfucking money. And then like the next week I started playing poker. So yeah, I don't know. They're interesting. They're really good. I think if you feel called to them, if you intuitively feel called to them, I think they have like a lot of benefit, but I think that they're like super powerful and just need to be treated with a lot of respect. And yeah, at this point, I'm like pretty much down the rabbit hole. I've done mushrooms, MDMA, acid, ayahuasca. I've smoked DMT, and each one is different. And I've frankly never, even when like they've been bad or tough, so to speak, for me, it's always been good. But I'm like quite grounded and resilient, so it's, I probably do better than most with them. But yeah, some of the most important, valuable stuff I've done with my life. Think they're awesome. I'm actually donating money. There's this guy, God, what's his name? Rick Doblin, who's in charge of MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Sciences. MDMA is they're about to get it approved for used for therapy for PTSD.
Yeah, so yeah.
So I don't oftentimes donate to charity, but this is one that I feel sort of like aligned with and invested in. So I'm going to donate to it. And yeah, I like the direction that's going too. It's some, my taste is going a little bit slowly than I would like. Like I wish these things were more ubiquitous and that we had centers and, practitioners trained to use them for I've never done it for fun. I always do it for like, therapeutic or spiritual sort of purposes. And it's been nothing but net with me since that first time when I was 18. So yeah, a lot of positive things to say. And I sort of hope more people use them and take them very seriously and treat them with respect, because they are serious. And if you disrespect them, they will disrespect you. So
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm even just surprised it's gaining the sort of traction that it's already gained from just like a medical perspective. And it's I think it's encouraging, man, just as far as I guess we was talking about before. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom right now from a societal standpoint, but I mean, I think there is good things going on as well. Or maybe that's just the optimist, in me. Who knows?
I know. I would say I am optimistic. I do think it'll ultimately work out, but I do think that it's going to get, that dimension of it is going to get, is still sort of like unresolved in many ways. Is going to get ugly before it gets better.
Sure.
But I do sort of feel like we are ultimately destined to succeed. Like I don't know. I tend to think that like something like a war is very, like, people don't want to go to war. They want to eat Cheesecake Factory and watch Netflix. Like, no one wants to go to war.
Yeah.
And like, if like, it's like on the one hand go to war, on the other hand we have to figure out a way for everybody to like eat Cheesecake Factory and like watch Netflix. I ultimately think we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's sort of my outlook. And
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. I absolutely agree. I guess one more thing I did want to bring up, because this podcast was supposed to start yesterday. We had to delay it.
Yeah.
What you want to tell us what went on there? Because
sure.
I know because JJ has some questions as well, right?
Yeah. No, I would love this.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. I'm good. I'm good with I got the crypto thing good. We're going to talk later about that for sure.
No. I'm talking about no. Ryan knows what I'm talking about. The TRT.
My professional poker career ended abruptly due to acute mercury poisoning. I had like a lot of mercury in my body.
Wow.
The reason was because I ate sushi, and the sort of further why is that it's likely because my body, for one reason or another, has a lot of trouble detoxing it. So it got to the point where it almost killed me. It got really bad. I gained something like 80 pounds, and I thought I was going to die. And this dimension for like my health, it is chronic health problems, sort of like largely defined my life ever since this happened, and it's been about 5 years. Anyway, I've cleared up a lot of the issues, but still sort of like struggle with mood, focus, sleep, weight, brain clarity, things of this nature. And for the last couple years, I've essentially tried every therapy known to man, trying to, and like, some which are conventional, some which are highly unconventional, trying to resolve this issue. And I've known for a couple of years now that I've had low testosterone, which is likely what is leading my symptoms, though not necessarily at the core of it. I could still have some residual mercury, which is affecting my testosterone production. But I know for a fact that I've had low testosterone now for a couple of years, and it's really been, affecting me. So I've been putting off doing TRT for a couple of years, just because I wanted to sort of turn over every stone. And I'm also a little bit worried about a couple things. Number one, it could potentially influence fertility, but doesn't necessarily have to. There's ways around that. Just sort of, cruise through these. But number one, I was worried about fertility. Number two, I was worried about having to then do it forever.
Interesting.
I just, at least the idea of that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And number three, there's this idea of iatrogenics, which is something that Taleb talks about. It's sort of the first rule of medicine, means do no harm. Or in other words, you try to fill in one hole and you end up digging a deeper hole by accident. So just the idea of sort of like dicking around with your hormones, your body chemistry, and especially in an unreversible, you have to be on it for life type of way, I was worried about. Also, if you go, the research indicates that if you do enough to put yourself at unnatural levels, you are at risk for all kinds of, like, you'll just die. Like, you're just gonna get cancer or heart disease or something, because it's just your body can't sustain it.
Okay.
So, but the zeitgeist from the group of medical experts that I've consulted with essentially say that if you do it right, you do not enough, and you're diligent about continually testing and monitoring yourself, you're not overdoing it, that you should be okay, and you should be okay, and always, including fertility and including the ability to potentially come off of it, especially earlier on. So yesterday we were originally slated to record this, but I got my first injection, and it just hit me like I was just really tired. I assume my body acclimating to it and whatever. And then actually slept pretty good last night and feel pretty good today. So, I think we're gonna need a couple months to get like a proper assessment, but I'm diving in, and we'll see how it goes.
Interesting. Yeah, very curious. Because I'm 52. People are like, oh yeah, you should check out this the test thing, and so I haven't really spoken to anyone who's started it. So it'd be interesting to monitor that.
Yeah, I know. I'd be happy to follow up with you. For me, it was definitely sort of like an age thing. Like, I was thinking, like, all things being equal, at 40, I would highly consider it. And at 50, I would be almost certain to just go for it. But yeah, no, from all the research I've done, everybody that gets on it is very pleased. And especially as you get older and older, it's a more and more exciting proposition. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And JJ, go to your doctor, not the guy at Gold's Gym. All right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, don't worry. I got some in the trunk of my car. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's back in the old days, we used to have this one guy. There were three guys, and I used to call them the stormtroopers. They all thought they were Thor, and they were just big roid heads. They'd come up to me because I was taking microbiology, and they'd be like, JJ, so we get some Anavar and we crush it up real good. Can we inject it? I'm like, no, that's not how it works. That's not. Oh man, yeah, the 80s were an interesting time.
Yeah, I also feel like we're in like a golden era of it, in that, like, guys have been doing it for like a little while now.
Yeah.
And there's a fair bit of research on it, and that you can get yourself, a competent medical professional and do it in like a very,
Controlled environment,
safe, controlled,
right, in the proper way. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, it's going to conclude today's episode of Confessions of a Market Maker. If you guys enjoyed the show, please rate and review it for us. If you guys want to learn market auction theory, market profile, trade futures, trade equities, join JJ and I at microefutures.com and equitiesetc.com. Fees, tell the people where they can find you and anything else you'd like them to know.
Twitter or Instagram at Ryan Fee Poker. And if you want some seriously strong poker coaching, check out Upswing Poker. If you don't know, like, me and Doug are no joke, and we've really poured our heart and soul into making like the best, easiest to use poker, courseware to elevate your game. And I'm sure, a lot of traders want to like step up their game and then kick their friend's ass. And, Upswing Poker is definitely the edge that would be sort of the perfect thing for that. So yeah, check us out.
Absolutely. JJ, parting words.
Oh, it was great having you on the show. I learned a lot and definitely need to talk to you more about making markets in crypto. It's fascinating stuff.
For sure. Yeah, no, I look forward to that. We should definitely follow up.
Very good. Ryan, appreciate you, man. Like I said in the beginning, this was a big one for me, man. Coming up playing poker, it means a lot that you came on, man. I really appreciate it. So thanks.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Excellent conversation. I think you guys are doing great things. So happy to be here.
All right. Awesome. All right. And so for Ryan Fee, I'm Paulie Walnuts. He's the gorilla of House Street. You stop, so.